Woohoo.
We should probably introduce ourselves, hey?
Hi. That worked well. Hello, my name is Szandor.
I'm Jodie Miners. I'm MVP from Melbourne, Australia. It's evening here, where it's morning for the rest of you. Ines.
Hello, I'm Ines Garcia. I'm in London. I'm a citizen of the world. And yeah, I'm a Salesforce MVP in the morning for me. And the next one is Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel Stange, Salesforce MVP from Frankfurt, Germany. It's morning here as well. No, not so much of sunshine, and I pass the ball to Kerry.
Hi, it's Kerry Townsend, also based in the UK. I'm a Salesforce MVP, and it's morning here, although I've managed to make this lighting look like it's in the dark.
Very good.
Okay, that leaves me. Hello, everyone. My name is Szandor Knapp, also Salesforce MVP, located in Munich, Germany, and I usually work with code.
Code.
And especially in code-wise, so Daniel might know, and you too, there have been things happening on the platform, like the safe navigation operator, which just changed things a lot for us coders and developers. And the question is, will I now revisit old code and do the new feature? Which brings me to the question, what do you do with new features? So you have an org running and there's a new feature coming up. How do you keep up, Jodie?
Okay, so for me, it's really, because I only work with small businesses, so I always have to sort of stipulate that when I'm talking about things, I'm not talking about enterprise level, scale wise of things. So a lot of the time I, will try and give myself time to play where I'm not charging my clients, but I'm playing with the new feature and then think of a way to help one of my clients. The dynamic forms is perfect for one of my clients. And when I built their app, I built it in a way that I knew that I could do dynamic forms later down the track because it's been in sort of, planning for so long. So now I've got to actually get it working. And that's the hard bit, is actually getting the time to get it working, to get it live, and then training them up on the new feature. Of something that's the scale of dynamic forms, it's much more involved. Whereas something like flow triggers, the users aren't ever going to see that. So that's just me playing around in the background to see whether I can make some improvements. And probably that sort of thing, I will even just launch it without even telling them, because it's just, I want to do it for my benefit, to help their org.
You can surely see how the impact of these changes in the way they rather get rolled out or trickle into an implementation. So when I look at the Safe Navigation Harbor, that's a nice call out actually, because this is actually the feature that I saw immediately trickle into everything that we do, because it's so much value that it's provided by this thing, and it's even not worse. It makes things better actually. It's worth as a developer to refactor code on your own without even being able to build this time, because it saves you so much time. Same goes for the flow triggers. Everything that goes beyond process builder brings so much value into a project that you deliberately do this instead of even look for the implementation concept with the customer or propose a project. You simply do this as long as the project can afford this. But there's definitely a larger gap to bridge when it comes to features that the user sees. I'm perfectly on your side there.
So from my side, it's been more of an enterprise. So I've been more in an enterprise setting and very much more on a greenfield type thing. So not having to consider legacy. And then, as you mentioned, Jodie, that there's a situation there where if it is seen by the user, then there's an extra consideration. If it isn't, then you might just incorporate it. And in terms of when I was thinking about this question, in terms of keeping up, I think when it comes to the big features, I potentially wait to see how some maybe thought leaders in the industry are talking about it. So I go to the user groups, right? And I'd hear about how some key people are positioning that, and I might also, depending on the feature and functionality and how new it is, might also wait a release cycle before talking at great extent or really selling a customer on that, depending on that. And that's come from experience, potentially. So yeah, it's a subtly different field, but there's a level of, sometimes there's a level of caution depending on what it is and how visible it is. And also I think in some, depending on the scale of the organization, they might actually be pulling those features. So they may be part of the beta. So you might have that where they're part of the proving ground. So there's a real variation in how you might keep up with that.
Do you have a strategy how to differentiate between the buzz and the value of a feature? If you're speaking of thought leaders, they typically raise, some of them raise things that are of value for them, and others raise points that are important for Salesforce to communicate. Let's say, put it neutral, communicate, and not speaking of betas or even alpha features or pilot features. But I seriously struggle to, especially in the time leading to a release, to actually find out what is actually marketing buzz and what's actually worth looking into it. I feel I don't have the time to really dig deep. And I wonder how do you guys and girls separate bullshit from the good things quite early? I think we all have to act early and fast.
Well, that takes me back to the question, how do you learn about them? Right. So are you reading blog posts? Are you watching videos? Have you been talking to your account executive? I, as some of you might know, love to read release notes. So how do I keep up? I read release notes, and I don't start with the fluffy stuff at the beginning. I start at the very bottom. And if something has an object model, and that object model is documented, it might be worth understanding and looking into. If something is just UI, so to say, then it's for now just UI. So I can't really do anything with it except take it as it is, because it's UI and people can click there. That's one of the ways for me to look at things. It's becoming increasingly more difficult because Salesforce is rolling out more and more products, that in a way that we partners used to do. So we do packages for a certain use case, for example, and now Salesforce itself does lots of packages for certain use cases and lots of clouds, financial cloud among many others, and so they have specific features as well. And my personal challenge is, well, where do I focus on? And the answer for me from a business perspective is, okay, I'm an ISV, I focus on stuff that I put into my product and I can use for my product. So what leads me to the question, who of you work with lots of different orgs and hence lots of different use cases, versus I myself, I work on improving my thing over a long time for all orgs there are. So my solution is often not to use something because it creates a dependency and people don't have that license or don't pay for that feature, so they wouldn't be able to install my package. That's the thing. And what about you? You need to constantly evaluate new features because you're rolling out new businesses or are doing projects in existing orgs, right?
Yeah, well, I can't look at anything that costs extra money. So for me, that's a really good thing to just go through and say if it's extra cost, or if we know it's a extra cost, or if it's anything to do with Marketing Cloud or anything other than just regular Sales and Service Cloud. I don't bother looking at it because I just know that that's not level that my clients do. And so I generally am not going to be able to sell something over and above the amazing level of costs that they already spend on their Salesforce licenses. So we've got to do what we can within their existing licensing costs. So, but I also read the release notes because I've got this long list of things in my mind that are just not quite finished yet. I'm always reading the release notes. Have they actually fixed anything to do with email templates yet? can we do use lightning email templates yet? And so I quickly skimmed through those things, that my top 10 things, and generally I'm disappointed, and then try and find any nuggets of new features that I might be able to use.
Yeah, I think it's kind of bubbling up a theme here, that is how you segment the bundle of release notes. One, we know that happens more or less at the same time 3 times a year. So it's something that we should be smart about and kind of schedule around. I work a lot with teams, and I really believe that you get more solutions when you are building together something. So I tend to try to influence release notes being segmented across multiple different team members. Can be things that you are interested on, areas that you want to get more knowledge about or whatever. And then you just have a session where you play back the things that you have experimented with. Because I'm very practical learner. You can read lots of things, but to me, it really sticks when I play with it. And I think, spin out the org, try some of the things, show it to your colleagues, when you explain things is another level of understanding, or it really helps me as well. So that's kind of the things that we're going about. I'm trying to influence when new release is coming around.
I've heard playtime now twice. Do you have all enough playtime?
Yes.
Define playtime.
Creative time that is maybe limited. Okay, 2 hours, 1 hour. I don't think it should be too short of a time, right? Because you can't get into the play, and it's basically, there's no set outcome. It's experimenting, it's trying, it's learning by doing. I'd say myself. But looking at myself, I'd say I don't have the playtime, especially not considering all the features there are, right?
Right.
Which is why I really focus on the release notes.
Yeah.
And again, many things are by now not really as important to me, because there's so many release notes, right?
Yeah, right.
Marketing Cloud release notes, you have release notes for Financial Service Cloud, I mentioned it again, and all those things need lots of background knowledge about the businesses, how they work, because Salesforce without business knowledge to me is a dire thing. So that's what keeps me up. I could keep up 2 years ago. By now I say I can't keep up. And I don't admire you, Jodie, who says, look, I'm a single person working with so many different clients and getting them all very happy. Whereas I see from a partner perspective, rather, okay, you need lots of people with lots of knowledge in order to get something down the road. Right. And I'm the scaling issue. An individual, I believe, or a small team can do so much in Salesforce by, I believe, also restricting themselves.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah,
and with bigger projects, I see there's no restriction. Everything needs to seamlessly co-work, coexist, even if the product used by Salesforce has just been released yesterday, which means I fear for maturity, I fear for experience, I fear for best practices. And with the amount, innovation is great, right? Innovation is one of the biggest things that Salesforce offers us on a rolling basis, but it comes with a cost. In the terms of, I also need to invest to get up to speed. And we mentioned marketing, we mentioned fluff. We know from experience, some things might not be prime time. And again, what could we suggest to people from, I suppose we're pretty successful in what we're doing. We made it to Salesforce MVPs, and looking at people who feel maybe overwhelmed by all of this, right? Imagine yourself starting now as a first-year admin and saying, look, I have 3 clouds in my company. They have totally different data models. I don't even know yet certainly what a data model is. What tips can we have? I can say, well, stay calm, keep calm. It'll work out in the end. Keep zen, but it's so much going on. So my immediate take is, as we mentioned, user groups, right? Talk to people face to face. The success group I find is a little bit crowded. It's hard to get the right attention. Sometimes talk to MVPs. We have the favor of sometimes getting the attention we need. What else could we do? I favor Stack Exchange because it's a very structured way of asking and answering, but it's very technical and it's certainly not admin geared towards admins. And I'm just thinking about a junior admin who wants to learn the ropes with so many clouds. What do we tell them?
Well, as a theme, how about just in time, right?
Yes.
So there is some connotations already that we mentioned. You don't have to know it all, and over information is a thing. So help yourself and what you have today that can bring value and stay up with those things. So personally, areas that I haven't touched yet, such as surveys. So that's something that I really skimmed through. I don't have to go through it in the release notes. It may be in the future, but probably will change so much that the just in time then will be better than now.
Yeah, like I'm a community cloud consultant certified, but I haven't done a community cloud in so long that I would actually have to relearn Experience Cloud now. If I was ever doing a product, I'd sort of know where to start, but I still have to relearn that. And a lot of features are like that. We do, unless we're actually using it for our orgs, we're not fully up to speed. We know it exists. We know it can do this stuff like next best actions. I've tried it a couple of times. I don't have a compelling reason to use it. So I'm not going to get into the absolute nitty gritty of how to use it. I know what it does. I know what it would be used for. If I had a client that was doing that, I would really delve into it. I don't need to know everything about it at the moment.
Yeah, that's important. That's really the point. That my exact feeling, and something that I had to learn the hard way because I don't really like feeling that I don't know anything. I'm really striving to know everything about the products, and it was possible when I started with Salesforce. There were 3 certifications, no, five: admin, advanced admin, service cloud, sales cloud, and the CTA that nobody could ever achieve. So it was technically 6 on only 5, and nowadays I really had to learn over the years, and it's just 5 years, that journey. I had to learn that I cannot cope with everything that's going on, and I cannot really cover everything, and I had to let loose somehow of being the expert for everything. And that's the first and primary message that I try to convey to my team always, that it's okay to not know everything and not go into every battle that is somewhere for them. So I think that's the most important thing, that you can't cover everything. So stick with what you're comfortable with. Find something that is interesting and probably off your comfort zone, but don't do everything. It's just impossible. And I, for myself, decided not to ever go into the B2C commerce cloud, even though we're and also on the executive level, I also pushed our company not to do every product, even though the AEs are pushing.
Same here, by the way.
I just wonder where the idea came that a Salesforce AE is probably the person that points you to the important things in the release notes. That's absolutely not my experience. But that's a side note, and I'm not want to kick their butts, but they're doing their job fine. But if I wanted to know about improvements and new things in Salesforce, the AE would probably be the last person to turn to.
I think, Jodie, you mentioned a point earlier about being needs-led. So you effectively have a list of things that you're looking for. So if someone, that's also like a strategy, which I think highlights what everyone else has said here, is that, think about what you're trying to get out of it first, rather than plunging in and being overwhelmed. Because again, I find it overwhelming. And I like, Daniel, how you said that you're staying away from B2C, but I mean, I've been in Marketing Cloud for the last 4 years, right? Which actually is different, as in it releases 5 times a year, and there is no sandbox, and it just goes live in production when it goes live, right? So you have to become familiar with the whole, okay, here we go, let's see how we're doing. let's see what's going on. And those, as you say, those features become instantly available to people to use at the point that it's been implemented on their stack. Right?
Yeah,
So one day something isn't available and the next day it is, or one day something works one way and then the next day you can't create it anymore because it doesn't work in quite the same way. So that's, or at least that's historically happened. Like I've not experienced too much of that recently, but you know, so that's an extra consideration. And I think, again, it's a slightly different in the sense that you mentioned playtime and how much time do you get to play and how do you get to evolve these products. And when you were talking about that, I was thinking that the space that I've been in for the last few years, that's not really so much of an option because there is no sort of marketing space which you can freely play in or learn without it having some implications. And then if we think about all the products that they're releasing in the marketing space, the marketing data space, you don't get like for examples of those where you can just go in and experiment. So it is very much a combined voyage with maybe if you're working in a, you know, a consulting space where you're working with the client and there's an element where you get access to some things from Salesforce in advance, but you really are working through it, you know, as you go, and then it comes back to the experience and the domain experience, which was highlighted again maybe around with the example of financial cloud, is if you're okay, so if you broadly know how to work in this space and the things that you're looking for, right, and the things that are important, therefore you're starting with those and you're moving forward. And I always remember someone talking about like field service lightning and how like actually learning the technology was not really the key to success. It was having the domain knowledge and knowing how to apply to really leverage that. So there's, you know, there's a couple of different dimensions in terms of, you know, technically what you might apply and knowing whether that's good or not to apply that. Then, you know, in your application business space, whether that is what you're asking for or not. So it sort of highlights that a lot has to come from, you know, the organization or the admin or the individual first in terms of determining, you know, where that focus is. And I suppose there's almost a gut level there where you go, right, this is what I feel like we should be looking at, or this is the direction I'm getting from my organization about what we should be focusing on. I'll start there because then I'm not going more.
Need to be led. It's like there's this real thing about business from many years ago when I was, you know, started being a business analyst, where a business analyst's job is to get the client to make a decision. And it's just like, no, that's not my job. My job is to tell my client this is what you need to do, because that comes from my domain knowledge of their business, my understanding of their business. So I know what is going to benefit them, no matter what tool it is. And it might not be Salesforce, it might be something else, it might be something that integrates with Salesforce, it might be just some simple desktop software or something. That's my job as their expert in their business systems to tell them, to lead them to that solution. So it does take that lot of knowledge, belief in yourself that you actually know the solution and know that's the best solution. Again, I don't need to know every single thing in and out. I need to know, does it help their problem? Then I will work out the technical part of it, how I actually use it to do the technical part. And especially for new products, like I'm just about to start a new product for a client, I've always had the thing that I will not charge them for my learning time. So I will learn it and just charge what would normally be for a technically competent person in that domain to implement that. So I think that's, you know, again, it's all about fairness and, you know, helping people. That's what I do.
Well, personally, and this is my very private opinion, education is my job, no one else's. So I might get lucky to I'll get hours or be paid for it, but at the end of the day, education, or as a German, I'd say Bildung, which is a slightly different concept, is just my responsibility, and I can't say, well, I don't get any time by my job, so I stop learning. That's not what I would suggest, because well, please don't feel offended. It's my personal opinion that I need to get my ass down and invest time learning, and I can't really make anyone else responsible for that. I heard relearning a little bit earlier, and I was wondering, yes, I do that as well, especially in terms of what kind of JavaScript framework Salesforce says is now the thing to go for. But I relearn on a certain fundament, and coming back to the first year admin trying to get the ropes. I think if you have a certain mind map and a developer mind map, that unfortunately or fortunately comes with experience, is okay. If you have strong orientation on the platform, you have something like the object model, and yes, there's automation, and there are developers, and automation gets better and better and better. You don't need as much development power anymore. I think that helps us to relearn things efficiently. But without such a mind map, I think it's very hard to find out where the actual value add has happened. I'm with you. I would need to do a complete new implementation of community from scratch, because so much has changed.
But let me just quickly jump in. You're speaking from a very privileged edge of the Salesforce ecosystem, because you're using products that you can simply try out in a developer org.
Yes.
With most of the products that we currently see, and it's definitely a pain that Kerry will know, because to get hands on a marketing cloud to actually try and learn something is ridiculously hard, and you always need the customer org to see the marketing cloud from inside. And now you have that kind of mock-up simulator that Salesforce offers for Trailhead, but and you have the partner orgs that you can buy at $0 if you are a registered partner. What do you do as an individual that wants to learn marketing cloud? You have to go into a paid training so that you get the training environment that will die probably. And most of the new products in Salesforce can be activated somehow over Salesforce DX. We create a scratch org, add a manufacturing cloud license, and so. But what you would do then? What comes next? So I see two barriers here. The one is getting access to the product and get access to the actually configured and working product. And I see the going really back to what Kerry said a while ago. The next barrier is to get the industry knowledge and the soft factors of enablement for the product, which is actually what kind of questions do you ask someone in manufacturing? What are the key pain points of utilities that use Salesforce, etc. So I kind of the more we talk, the more I see these kinds of barriers come up, and it's quite easy on the development side. We just have to relearn Aura. That Aura is the old shit and LWC is the new one. But this is if I look here, half of the group at least is rather concerned with areas that don't give that access to learning in a way that we as developers have, and that's a bit tricky, because these products, there are more and more extra licensed products which don't give the access to the product than a developer org does.
Yeah.
I don't really have an answer for that.
We had a couple of years ago the voice of the customer roadmap or something like that. So since then, I'm trying to express to the product team that Salesforce was unique in something from the very beginning, and it was accessibility, not just for the citizen development kind of side of things, but the ability to spin up an environment and learn tangibly. And I really believe in empirism. You learn by doing, you acquire knowledge with experience. So I really think that's something that it needs to evolve as the product families grow. You need to make it accessible. And in a sense, with SFDX, you have the ability to spin up and add certain things. Depends, not all the products, but it gives you the ability to play with certain add-ons. then depends of the client that you're working with. For example, for me, I've been lucky enough in environments where we try to get hands-on direct question of, can we try this thing for a month or for longer? And that's how I learned Einstein analytics. And that's how I've been in certain pilots. You learn, I learn on the job most of the time. And for you have the know already, you can always ask, can we try this thing for a little bit? And I think, yes, you need to make space to learn. And I really enjoy learning. I wake up at 6:30 in the morning every day. And I invest a lot of my own time for expanding my knowledge. But learning within context is super valuable. So we need to create environments where that is part of the process.
Yeah, you've got to be able to build something for your client. Yeah.
But that changes the cultural shift as well, because then it comes on to that we can migrate into all the other challenges around, you know, so Salesforce has made things very accessible. They've made their learning very accessible, which is awesome. So it's enabling a huge amount of people to get onto the platform, which is absolutely wonderful. But then we are also, particularly, I think, highlighted maybe in the pandemic, about how, you know, we're all online and then we're all creeping into this, where is the work life and personal life balance? I mean, Salesforce does an amazing job of sort of swapping into the two, because you're giving your clothing, they're giving people labels and identity. And like your life, your work
They're
life,
awesome at that.
your
Trailhead
work
is awesome.
life shifts into your personal life, and there's a great deal of synergy about that, and it has some significant benefits. But it does mean that where the line stops, right, and where the separation also starts to become blurred. And I think with the pace of change and learning that's required, although I conceptually agree that, you know, learning is something that you shouldn't necessarily, like, your learning and the time shouldn't necessarily always be fully passed on, maybe, but in a business model, we can't be in a situation where, you know, if you looked at some of the larger organizations, that all of the people that work at those organizations are expected to do their 9 to 5 job or whatever that, like, and very rarely it's not that, because we're creeping in this time, and then go, okay, where is that proportion of learning time? And I personally think it's almost sort of more healthy from a mental sort of point of view, that we need to, you know, if you're going to get on board with this platform, which is a highly innovative space, then part of that is not only the actual end deliverable, but also the learning element, which doesn't necessarily need to just be one person, but as Ines says, you learn as a team. So what are you collectively doing in that space? And how can an organization as a whole improve its, you know, its IP and its identity and be a great place to work, plus also bake in some of that knowledge which is unique to them by working collectively. And it's that, you know, I don't know if this is the right word, but, you know, the knowledge economy, it's that knowledge working that actually is where the difference is, rather than, you know, can I ask someone to write a very specific piece of code, and could I outsource that to someone that I never met? And, you know, 50% of the time that could be great code, and 50% of the time that might be not so great code, but can I do that? So that's one element. But then there's also, if I really want to differentiate myself in this space, then I have to be in an environment where I'm opening innovation and I'm allowing creativity. Because I think a lot of us get into this because it's also creative, right? It's that problem solving, like, how can I move and problem solve here to make something that's, I'd like to think unique, because, you know, I like to think that I'm unique. We all like to think that we're unique when we're all not really unique, but, you know, that's that sort of thing. So yeah,
right, we're going to start out of here in about 5 minutes. So why don't we go through a round of what would be the number one or number two thing you would tell a new person coming onto the Salesforce platform as the first direction to take as far as how to learn, how to expand their horizons on the Salesforce platform. Kerry, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I would search for, look inwards to see an experience or a problem that you specifically want to solve or have seen, right? And then start with curiosity from that point onwards.
Okay, Daniel?
Well, curiosity is definitely what drives me. But I tend to do only the things that are close to my interests and ideas. So I'd really would encourage everyone who's new to try to find out something that they didn't know about and didn't feel very comfortable with at the beginning, and probably also find people to learn as a group that are not exactly yours. So rather enhance your vision than complement you with your own a copy of yourself. That won't bring you forward. So do something, meet someone new, and do something new every time. At least 10% of what you're learning should be something new and something you don't feel comfortable with.
Szandor?
Two things. First of all, go to Trailhead and build the Battle Station app. If you have done that, and that is really, really important, I believe, especially for a junior person, and I felt that way when I started because I studied philosophy. I have no economics or technical background, so I didn't know a lot about business. But in order to get a grip on Salesforce, you need to have an understanding of what's possible. That's the Battle Station app without any business context. But then please sit down 1 hour, 2 hours, and invent a business. Think about how people need to cooperate, how people need to talk, and then take your knowledge about the Battle Station app and find out if you could build that business in Salesforce. But without the business, without an understanding how an organization, a business organization works and what departments are there and what jobs and tasks are there, it's very hard to get the value of I'm clicking a field. Oh, great. It's great because you can implement change very quickly, and it's great because Salesforce is not only a tech tool, but immediately affects the organization. And that's why they're tied in so closely. And that's why I'm absolutely convinced that you need to invent your business and start selling stuff and implement it in Salesforce. And if that gets you, stick on it. And if it doesn't, well, maybe look for something else.
I'm just amazed how you could put the two most important things about learning Salesforce in just one answer. Kudos. That's great.
Ines?
Well, I'm going to try to summarize with the 3 C's. So being curious, and I do believe that each one of us, we are unique. So how can you explain your story? How can you, whoever you are already, the skills that you are, what makes you unique? How can you have a narrative worth to be listened to, remarkable and memorable? And be curious about what do you do today that you can build in Salesforce? Those are giving you narrative, super important if you really want to make a dent in this world. Then consistency. This is not, excellence is not an act, it's a habit. Every day, 1-2 hours, go for it. And the 3rd C is connect. One of the wonderful things of this ecosystem, and I think is the advantage that no one else have, is the community. So get involved. That's answers, local groups, community conferences, whatever. People are super nice. So just go for it and take advantage. Curious, consistent, connect.
Lovely. Mine is T-shape. It's a really, happening thing at the moment, but I'm a generalist. So this is how I learn Salesforce. I don't need to know everything, but I like to know that I know what every button on the screen does and what every product or feature in the main platform is, at least by name, that I can tell you, well, that's what that does. You know those 4 words, things from Amazon and from AWS and Azure, where they describe every single feature in 4 words? I feel like I could almost do that with Salesforce almost. So, but then delve down into the areas that you want. And you know what, I would, again, Trailhead is excellent, but I would actually say go to one of the Salesforce Trailhead Academy courses, 5-day courses where you can really learn, especially the admin course. If you've never done Salesforce before, even for me who's been experienced in databases, I learned so much out of the admin course that, I wouldn't have ever come across in other instances. And it would have been a really difficult learning curve to learn those sort of really intricate things. So to delve deep down into those things. So, and then community, study, Salesforce Saturdays, talk to people. It's all about talking to people who you know. Szandor, would you like to wrap us up about what we've learned today?
Okay, we started on the how do we cope with new features on the platform. We did a huge trail on learning, being curious, relearning even, about feeling overwhelmed with the platform, but also understanding, thank you, Kerry, that outside of the core platform, things are worse, and outside of the Salesforce space, things are even worse. And that's why we focused on the last part on what we suggest, and each of us came up with a very individual suggestion how to get on the ropes in your first admin year or getting curious about the platform. And with that, thank you so much. Have a great evening, great morning, great day. I need to hop off and do some work now.
Okay,
Bye-bye. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.